The year was 2347, and humanity had spread across 12 worlds beyond Earth. They had built cities on distant planets, made friends with alien species, and joined the Galactic Concord as peaceful traders. For 200 years, humans believed they were safe among the stars. They were wrong. Daniel Carter stood on his porch in Colorado, watching his grandchildren play in the yard. He was 63 years old, retired from the Earth Defense Fleet after 40 years of service. His wife had died 2 years ago, and now his daughter and her children lived with him. It was a quiet life, and Daniel had made peace with it. The sky changed color without warning. What had been clear blue turned orange, then red. Daniel's military instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed his communicator and tried to reach the orbital defense platform. Nothing but static answered him. 3,000 miles above Earth, Lisa Monroe was running through smoke-filled corridors. She was 26 years old, a communications officer who had never seen combat. Now explosions shook the station around her, and bodies lay in the hallways. The Veth had come without warning, their shadow ships appearing from nowhere to tear through human defenses like paper. Lisa reached her station and found it still working. Around her, the platform was dying. She could hear the screams of her friends through the walls. Her hand shook as she activated the emergency broadcast system. "This is Orbital Platform 7, she said into the microphone. "We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Unknown enemy fleet. They came out of nowhere. Our weapons cannot lock onto them. Please, anyone who can hear this, humanity is under attack." She sent the message on every frequency she knew. Then an explosion threw her across the room, and everything went dark in the asteroid belt. Kevin Brooks heard the distress call on his mining ship's old radio. He was 34, an engineer who had spent the last 10 years pulling valuable metals from space rocks. His crew of 12 looked at him with fear in their eyes. "What do we do, boss?" asked his second-in-command. Kevin watched the distant flashes of light near Earth. Even from this far away, he could see the battle. He could see humanity losing. "We hide," he said. "We power down everything except life support, and we hide in the shadow of the biggest asteroid we can find. And we wait." Back on Earth, Daniel had gathered his family in the basement. His daughter held her children close while Daniel watched the news on an old screen. The reports were chaos. New York was burning. London had gone silent. Beijing was under some kind of energy dome. Ships fell from the sky like burning rain. The Galactic Concord had refused to help. They had treaties with the Veth Dominion, they said. They could not interfere in what they called a regional conflict. Humanity had thought they had friends among the stars. Now they learned the truth. When darkness came, they stood alone. Daniel tried to contact anyone from the old fleet. Most channels were dead. The few voices he found were desperate, confused, dying. The Veth Shadow Fleet moved through human defenses like ghosts, striking and vanishing before anyone could fight back. "Grandpa," his grandson said, "are the bad aliens going to hurt us?" Daniel looked at the boy's face. He wanted to lie. He wanted to say everything would be fine. But he had never lied to his family. "I do not know," he said. "But I promise you this. I will fight for you until my last breath." The invasion lasted 3 days. 3 days to conquer a species that had spread across 12 worlds. The Veth were efficient and brutal. They did not negotiate. They did not explain. They simply took. When it was over, Earth was occupied. The colonies had fallen or gone silent. Billions were dead, and billions more were prisoners. The Veth began gathering humans into massive camps, and no one knew why. Lisa woke up in a pile of debris on the crippled station. She was injured but alive. Emergency power kept the air flowing, but she was alone. Everyone else in her section was dead. She cried for an hour, Then she stopped crying and started thinking. The station still had working communication equipment. Most of it was damaged, but Lisa was good at her job. She spent 2 days repairing what she could. On the third day, she sent her first message to the surface. "This is Lisa Monroe. I am alive on Platform 7. If anyone can hear me, respond on frequency 773. Silence answered her for 6 hours. Then a voice came through, rough and tired. "This is Daniel Carter, Rocky Mountain Resistance. We hear you, Platform 7. Welcome to the fight." In the asteroid belt, Kevin and his crew had survived by staying invisible. They listened to every transmission they could find, building a picture of what had happened. Earth was lost. The colonies were lost. But humans were not gone. Kevin looked at his mining ships. They were not warships, but they were tough machines built to survive the dangers of space. And his crew knew how to work in the dark, in the cold, in places where death waited around every corner. "We are not going home yet," Kevin told his people. "But we are not giving up either. We learn. We watch. We find their weakness. And when the time comes, we make them pay for every human they killed." The Veth, the war was over. They had won faster than they expected. Humans were weak, they believed. Soft creatures from a small world who had no idea how to fight a real enemy. They did not understand what they had awakened in basements and bunkers. In crippled stations and hidden ships, humans were not surrendering. They were adapting. They were planning. They were finding each other in the darkness. The Veth had conquered Earth in 3 days. They would spend the next year learning why that was the worst mistake they ever made. 3 months had passed since the fall of Earth. The world that humans once called home was now a prison planet, patrolled by Veth soldiers and their shadow ships. But in places the enemy could not see, humanity refused to die. Daniel Carter had built something in the Rocky Mountain tunnels. It started with his family and a few neighbors. Then soldiers found them, then scientists, then ordinary people with nothing left to lose. Now he led 300 survivors in a network of old military bunkers that the Veth had never found. Every day was a struggle. Food was running low. Medicine was almost gone. But Daniel kept his people alive, and more importantly, he kept them fighting. Lisa Monroe had become his eyes in the sky. She lived alone on the crippled orbital platform, surviving on emergency rations and recycled air. Her damaged equipment could not reach far, but it could reach far enough. She connected Daniel to other resistance groups across the planet, building a web of survivors who shared information and hope. "I found another group in Argentina," she told Daniel one night. 200 people hiding in the mountains. "They have a doctor with them. Can they move north?" Daniel asked. "Not yet. Veth patrols are heavy in that region. But they are alive, and they are listening." That was what mattered now. Staying alive. Staying connected. Waiting for a chance to strike back. In the asteroid belt, Kevin Brooks had been busy. His 12-person crew had grown to 47 as they found other survivors drifting in disabled ships. They had gathered 17 mining vessels, none of them built for war, but all of them strong. Kevin spent his days studying the enemy. He watched Veth patrol patterns. He analyzed their ship movements. And one night, he found something that changed everything. Their shadow technology, he told his crew. The thing that makes them invisible to our sensors. It bends light and radar, but it cannot hide heat. When they move, they create a small heat signature. Our old thermal sensors can see it. His second-in-command stared at him. "You mean we can find them?" "I mean we can hunt them." On Earth, the Veth were doing something terrible. They gathered humans into processing facilities, and those humans never came back. No one knew what happened inside those buildings. The screams that came from them at night were enough to tell everyone. They did not want to know. Daniel lost sleep thinking about those facilities. His daughter asked him every day if he was going to do something about them. He did not have an answer yet. Then, Amy Sullivan arrived at his bunker. She was a biologist who had survived the invasion by hiding in the Alaskan wilderness. For 3 months, she had lived alone in the frozen north, eating what she could find and avoiding Veth patrols. When she finally made contact with the resistance, she brought something valuable with her. "I captured one," she told Daniel. "A Veth soldier. It died after 2 weeks, but I learned something before it died." Daniel leaned forward. "What did you learn?" "They are afraid of our bacteria. Earth germs make them sick. Very sick. The one I captured died from an infection that would give a human a small fever for 2 days. Their immune systems cannot handle our world." For the first time in 3 months, Daniel smiled. The captured Veth had revealed something else before it died. Amy had questioned it for days, learning what she could about the enemy. The Veth had conquered 43 species across the galaxy. None of those species had ever fought back after defeat. The Veth did not understand resistance because they had never faced it. "They think we are broken," Amy said. "They think the war is over and we are just waiting to be processed. They have no idea we are still fighting." Daniel called a meeting of all his fighters. 37 men and women gathered in the main bunker, their faces hard with anger and loss. "We know their weakness now," Daniel told them. "They cannot see heat. They cannot survive our germs. And they do not expect us to fight. We are going to use all of that against them." Lisa reported that the Veth were moving prisoners to a facility in Nebraska. 2,000 humans scheduled for processing in 3 days. Daniel made a decision. "We are going to hit that facility," he said. "We are going to free those people." His fighters looked at each other. They had weapons taken from dead Veth soldiers. They had vehicles hidden in old garages. They had rage that burned hotter than any star. "When do we leave?" asked a young woman named Sandra. "Tomorrow night. We move in darkness. We hit them before dawn." In space, Kevin received word of the planned attack. He could not help directly, but he could create a distraction. His fleet of mining ships powered up and began moving toward Earth. The Veth detected them immediately. Shadow ships moved to intercept the human vessels. Kevin was counting on that. While the enemy focused on the ships they could see, Daniel and his fighters would strike at targets on the ground. Amy Sullivan worked through the night, preparing something special. She had taken samples from the dead Veth soldier and grown cultures of Earth, bacteria that were especially deadly to the alien biology. She loaded these cultures into grenades that Daniel's fighters would carry into battle. The resistance network buzzed with activity. Groups across the planet prepared for their own actions. Some would attack Veth patrols. Others would destroy supply depots. All of them would show the enemy that humanity was not finished. Lisa watched from orbit as the sun set over North America. Somewhere down there, Daniel and his people were moving through the shadows toward the enemy. "Good luck," she whispered into her microphone, knowing they could not hear her. "Make them remember what humans can do." The Veth had brought darkness to Earth. They were about to learn that humans had lived in darkness before. And in darkness, humans had always found ways to survive. Tomorrow would be the first day of a new war. A war the Veth never expected. A war they were not prepared to fight. The shadows belonged to humanity now. The attack on the Nebraska facility began at 3 in the morning. Daniel led his fighters through drainage tunnels that ran beneath the Veth compound. Above them, guards patrolled walls they believed no human could breach. They were wrong. Daniel's team emerged inside the facility like ghosts. Amy's biological grenades went first, filling the air with bacteria that would kill any Veth who breathed it. The aliens began choking and falling before they understood what was happening. The human fighters moved fast. They had trained for this moment, practiced every movement until it was automatic. Room by room, they cleared the facility. Room by room, they found their people. 2,000 humans sat in cages, waiting to be processed. When they saw Daniel and his fighters, they did not believe their eyes. Some of them cried. Some of them laughed. All of them stood up and prepared to follow their rescuers into the night. "Move quickly," Daniel told them. "We have vehicles waiting outside. Do not stop for anything." The escape took 40 minutes. By the time Veth reinforcements arrived, the facility was empty. 2,000 humans had vanished into the darkness, and 60 Veth soldiers lay dead on the ground. Word of the Nebraska raid spread across the planet within hours. Lisa made sure of that. She broadcast the news on every frequency she could reach, telling every hidden group of survivors what had happened. "The resistance is real," she said in her message. "We can fight back. We can win. The Veth are not gods. They bleed. They die. And they fear what we can become." Uprisings began everywhere. In Europe, resistance fighters destroyed a Veth communication tower. In Asia, hidden soldiers ambushed a convoy of enemy vehicles. In Africa, a group of farmers used old hunting rifles to take down a shadow ship that flew too low over their village. The Veth High Command grew worried. This had never happened before. Conquered species did not fight back. They accepted their fate and waited for processing. But humans were different. Humans would not stop. Kevin Brooks chose this moment to reveal his fleet. His 17 mining ships emerged from the asteroid belt, flying toward Earth in tight formation. The Veth sent shadow ships to intercept them, but Kevin had prepared for this. "Activate thermal targeting," he ordered his crew. "Show them we can see through their tricks." The first missile struck a shadow ship that believed it was invisible. The explosion lit up the darkness of space, and the Veth suddenly understood they had a problem. Kevin did not have enough firepower to defeat the Veth fleet. He knew that. But he did not need to defeat them. He only needed to show them that humans could fight in space as well as on the ground. 3 more shadow ships died before Kevin pulled his fleet back into the asteroid belt. The Veth did not follow. They were too confused, too scared, too unsure of what was happening. On the crippled orbital platform, Lisa received a transmission she did not expect. It came from outside human space, from a ship belonging to the Galactic Concorde. "This is Ambassador Theron of the Kalani people," the voice said. "We have been watching your struggle. We wish to help." Lisa did not trust it immediately. The Concorde had abandoned humanity when the Veth attacked. Why would they help now? Why? She asked, and there was a long pause before Theron answered. "Because we have never seen anything like this. Every species the Veth conquered simply gave up. Your people refuse to surrender even when logic says you should. Some of us in the Concorde believe this makes you worthy of respect and worthy of assistance. The Kalani could not send ships openly. That would violate their treaties with the Veth. But they could send information." Theron transmitted detailed plans of Veth technology, including the secrets of their shadow ships and the location of their main fleet. Lisa sent this information to Daniel and Kevin immediately. Now they knew exactly how the enemy worked. Now they could plan something bigger than raids and ambushes. A month after the Nebraska attack, Daniel called a meeting of all resistance leaders. They gathered in person for the first time, traveling through hidden routes to reach a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. There were representatives from every continent, survivors who had become warriors. Daniel stood before them with a map of Earth glowing on a screen behind him. "We have hurt them," he said, "but hurting them is not enough. We need to drive them from our world. And I believe we can do it." He explained the plan. Kevin's fleet would draw the Veth ships away from Earth, ground forces would strike every major Veth base at the same time. Amy's biological weapons would be deployed across all occupied zones. And Lisa would coordinate everything from orbit, making sure every attack hit at exactly the right moment. "This will not be easy," Daniel admitted. "Many of us will die. But if we do nothing, we die anyway. At least this way, we die fighting." No one in that bunker chose to walk away. Every leader agreed to the plan. Every group committed their fighters to the cause. The Veth commander received reports of increased human activity and dismissed them. These creatures were pests, he believed. Annoying but harmless. His fleet controlled the sky, and his soldiers controlled the ground. What could a few desperate survivors possibly do? He broadcast a message to the planet, demanding immediate surrender. His words were translated into every human language. "Your resistance is meaningless. Surrender now, or face complete destruction. You cannot win. You have never won. Accept your fate." Daniel answered on the same frequency, making sure every Veth and every human could hear his words. "We were born on a world of storms, earthquakes, and predators. We survived ice ages and plagues. We climbed from caves to the stars. You think darkness frightens us? We learned to make fire. We have always made our own light." The final battle would begin in 3 days. Humanity was ready. The attack began at midnight across every time zone on Earth, from the mountains of South America to the forests of Russia, from the deserts of Australia to the frozen north of Canada. Human fighters emerged from hiding and struck. Daniel led the assault on the Veth Central Command in what had once been New York City. 300 fighters followed him through the ruined streets, moving in silence through shadows they had learned to call home. Above them, the enemy headquarters towered, like a dark monument to conquest. Kevin's fleet descended from the asteroid belt at the same moment. His ships screamed into Earth's orbit, thermal sensors hunting for the shadow fleet that guarded the planet. The Veth commander scrambled his forces to meet this threat, pulling ships away from ground support positions. That was exactly what Daniel needed. "All teams, go," Lisa broadcast from her orbital platform. "Hit them everywhere. Hit them now." The world exploded into war. In the former European Union, resistance fighters stormed a Veth power station that supplied energy to half the occupation force. Amy Sullivan had trained teams across the planet, and they deployed her biological weapons with deadly precision. Veth soldiers collapsed by the hundreds, their alien bodies destroyed by Earth bacteria. They had no defense against in Asia. A coalition of survivors attacked the largest Veth processing facility on the continent. They freed 10,000 human prisoners and burned the building to the ground. The flames could be seen for 50 miles. In Africa, fighters used captured Veth weapons to shoot down patrol ships. In Australia, mining explosives destroyed supply depots. In South America, former soldiers led charges against enemy positions with nothing but rifles and rage. The Veth had never faced anything like this. Their commanders screamed orders that no one could follow. Their soldiers died in their thousands. Their carefully built empire of fear began to crack. Daniel reached the base of the enemy headquarters. The building was defended by the best Veth soldiers, warriors who had conquered a dozen worlds. They stood ready with weapons that could vaporize a human body in a second. Daniel did not care. "For Earth," he said, and led his people into the fire. The battle inside the headquarters lasted 4 hours. Human fighters died in every corridor, on every staircase, in every room. But for every human who fell, 3 more pushed forward. They fought with guns when they had ammunition. They fought with knives when the guns were empty. They fought with their bare hands when they had nothing else. In orbit, Kevin's fleet engaged the Veth shadow ships in the largest space battle humanity had ever fought. His mining vessels were not designed for war, but his crews had modified them with salvaged weapons and desperate engineering. They used their thermal sensors to track invisible enemies, and their mining lasers to cut through alien armor. Nathan Price, a pilot who had survived the initial invasion by stealing a Veth cruiser, led a strike team against the enemy flagship. His ship was faster and more powerful than anything else in the human fleet, and he used it to tear a path through the Veth formation. "Target the command ship," Nathan ordered. "Take out their leader, and the rest will fall apart." The Veth commander watched his fleet crumbling around him. He could not understand what was happening. These humans had been defeated. They had been conquered. How were they fighting like this? How were they winning? He broadcast a demand for reinforcements, but the nearest Veth fleet was 3 weeks away. He was alone against an enemy that should have been broken. On the ground, Daniel reached the top floor of the headquarters. His fighters had taken heavy losses, but 60 of them still stood with him. Across the room, the Veth ground commander waited with his personal guard. "You cannot win," the Veth commander said. His translator turned the alien words into English that Daniel could understand. "Even if you take this building, more of us will come. You are fighting against the inevitable." Daniel raised his weapon. "We are humans. We do not believe in inevitable." The fight that followed lasted only minutes. When it was over, Daniel stood alone among the bodies, wounded but alive. The Veth flag that had flown over New York for 9 months came down, and a human flag rose in its place. Lisa watched from orbit as similar victories were reported from across the planet. Not every attack succeeded. Some groups were wiped out. Some positions held against human assault. But the overall picture was clear. The Veth were losing. "Kevin," she broadcast to the fleet, "how are you doing up there?" Kevin's voice came back through static. "We lost 8 ships, but we have destroyed or disabled 37 of theirs. Their commander is running." The Veth flagship was pulling away from Earth, abandoning the ground forces it was supposed to protect. Nathan Price pursued, his stolen cruiser firing everything it had. "Let him go," Kevin ordered. "We need you here." Nathan wanted to argue. He had lost his family in the invasion, and he wanted the Veth commander to pay personally. But he was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders. He turned his ship back toward Earth. On the ground, Daniel received word that his daughter and grandchildren were safe. Fighters had protected the bunker throughout the battle. He closed his eyes for a moment and let himself feel relief, but there was no time to rest. The battle was not over yet. Thousands of Veth soldiers still held positions across the planet. They would have to be cleared out, one by one. Then something unexpected happened. Ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. Not Veth ships. Ships from the Galactic Concord. 7 different species had sent vessels, breaking their treaties with the Dominion to stand with humanity. Ambassador Theron's voice came through on all frequencies. "We have watched your people fight against impossible odds. You have shown the galaxy what true courage looks like. We will not let you stand alone any longer." The Concord ships powered toward Earth, weapons ready to finish what humans had started. For the first time in 9 months, the people of Earth looked up at the sky and did not see enemies. They saw allies. They saw hope. The darkest hour was ending. Dawn was finally coming. The final battle for Earth lasted 3 more days. With the Galactic Concord fleet providing support from orbit, human forces pushed the remaining Veth soldiers into smaller and smaller pockets of resistance. The aliens who had once conquered the planet now fought, desperately, just to survive. Daniel led the assault on the last major Veth stronghold, a fortress they had built in the ruins of Washington. The enemy had gathered their remaining forces there, nearly 5,000 soldiers determined to make humanity pay for every victory. "They are surrounded," Lisa reported from orbit. "No reinforcements coming. No escape routes open. They know this is the end." Daniel looked at the fortress through his binoculars. Veth wetted from every window, every wall, every rooftop. Taking this position would cost many human lives. Offer them surrender, he said. His fighters looked at him with surprise. After everything the Veth had done, Daniel was offering them mercy. Sir? Asked Sandra, the young woman who had become his second in command. We are not like them, Daniel said. We never were. Offer them surrender. If they accept, we take them prisoner. If they refuse, we do what we must. The offer was transmitted to the Veth fortress. For 2 hours, there was no response. Then the gates opened, and Veth soldiers began walking out with their hands raised in the human gesture of surrender. Not all of them came out. Some preferred to die fighting. Daniel gave them that choice. The battle for the fortress took 6 hours. When it was over, 3,000 Veth had surrendered and 2,000 had died. Human losses were 400 dead and nearly 1,000 wounded. The war, Earth was over. Kevin brought his fleet down from orbit, landing his battered mining ships in fields outside the cities they had helped liberate. His crews emerged to cheering crowds, survivors who wanted to thank the people who had fought for them in the sky. Lisa finally left her orbital platform after 9 months alone. A Concorde shuttle brought her down to the surface, where Daniel was waiting. They had spoken thousands of times over the radio, but had never met in person. You kept us connected, Daniel told her. Without you, we would have stayed scattered, alone. You gave us a network. You gave us each other. Lisa did not know what to say. She simply hugged them, and for a moment, neither of them had to be strong. Amy Sullivan was given the highest honors humanity could offer. Her biological weapons had turned the tide of the war, killing more Veth soldiers than any other strategy. Scientists from the Galactic Concorde studied her work. Amazed that a single human, biologists had found a weakness that their entire civilizations had missed. Nathan Price received command of the first new human warship, built from a combination of Earth technology and Concorde designs. He named it Defiance, and it became the symbol of humanity's new place in the galaxy. The Veth commander was captured trying to flee the solar system. He was brought before Daniel in the ruins of the old United Nations building, where humans had once dreamed of unity and peace. The alien looked old now, defeated in a way that went beyond military loss. His species had never known failure. They had never been beaten by anyone they conquered. The experience had broken something inside him. How did you do it? He asked Daniel. You were beaten. Your fleets were destroyed. Your cities were in ruins. You had nothing. How did you keep fighting? Daniel thought about the question for a long time before answering. Because we had everything, he said. We had each other. We had hope. We had the memory of what we were, and the dream of what we could become again. You took our world, but you could not take our spirit. You can never take that from humans. The Veth commander did not understand. Perhaps his species never would. 1 year later, Earth had begun to heal. Cities were being rebuilt. Farms were producing food again. Children played in streets that had once been battlefields. Life was returning to a world that had nearly died. The Galactic Concorde had welcomed humanity as full members, not as junior partners, but as equals. The story of human resistance had spread across the galaxy, changing how other species thought about the small blue planet and its strange, stubborn people. The Veth Dominion had withdrawn to their distant territories. They still existed, still controlled their empire, but they never threatened human space again. Some said they were afraid. Others said they simply could not understand an enemy that would not surrender. Daniel stood in a memorial garden that had been built where the New York headquarters once stood. Stone tablets listed the names of everyone who had died in the war. There were millions of names, covering walls that stretched for miles. His grandson stood beside him, now 12 years old. The boy had grown up during the occupation, had learned to hide and run and survive. Now he was learning how to live again. "Grandpa," the boy asked, "what did we learn from all of this?" Daniel put his hand on his grandson's shoulder and looked up at the sky. Stars were beginning to appear as the sun set. Those same stars had brought terror and death just a year ago. Now they brought hope and possibility. "We learned that shadows only exist where there is light," Daniel said. "And humans have always carried fire in their hearts. No matter how dark things get, we will always find a way to make light again." The boy thought about this for a moment. Is that why they could not beat us? Because we would not stop hoping? Daniel smiled. That is exactly why. The Veth conquered our world, but they could not conquer our spirit. They brought darkness, but we brought fire. And fire always wins against the dark. Above them, ships moved across the evening sky. Human ships now, traveling freely among the stars. Humanity had walked through its darkest hour and emerged stronger than before. They would never forget the price they paid. They would never forget the friends they lost. But they would also never forget what they learned about themselves in the deepest shadows. They had discovered their greatest strength. And that strength would light their way forward forever.